Hello everybody, and welcome to the long-awaited, much-anticipated first battle report using the Clash 22 update. I'm of course Visibly Riley, and this week we have Ratkin versus Empire of Dust in a 1995 +5, not sure why we have the +5, points battle of control. First up, we have my opponent's Empire of Dust list, which opens with 2 regiments of scavengers, followed by 2 hordes of enslaved guardians. Then we have 2 hordes of enslaved guardians archers, terrible name, followed by a monolith, a soul snare, and the Bone Shakers formation, which involves 2 regiments of revenant chariots, a legion of revenant chariots, and a revenant champion on undead horse. In this case, my opponent has chosen to take the new Surge 5 upgrade for that unit. So let's take a look at what those new units look like real quick, because the Revenant Chariots did receive a profile shift. They received a pretty decent point reduction in exchange for losing their native ranged attacks, which I think if you've ever played Revenant Chariots, you'd see as fair. They gained the Brutal rule natively, so that's really good for them. And then unfortunately the bows, which you can buy back, are just not really worth it. Before, the whole point was you could double tap, right? You can move forward, shoot with the bows, and then be surged into your target. But you only hit on 5+. You do have steady aim, but still 5+. And they gave them Shattering as the bonus rule there. And unfortunately, I think that's a little, not tone deaf, but it's just not good enough, right? Because for a 15-point upgrade to gain sometimes 10 shots, right? Like let's say on the Legion, I don't know. Because the Shattering will not trigger when you surge into the target anyway, right? Afterwards, and then also it doesn't stack with Brutal even if it did, so it's just kind of at odds with itself. You could still take it because of course you can shoot at small chaff elements, but Empire of Dust doesn't really have that problem. What they have a problem with is that their stuff is very, very expensive, right? So slapping on a few more points for stuff like this, probably not worth it. And I would have loved to see a change to the jars, which are unplayable, but not literally, but figuratively. But anyway, otherwise, I really like this change. Really good stuff. And the formation is very boilerplate. It's just like, other chariot formations, the Revenant Champion, and then both the regiments are going to get Rampage D3 melee, while the Legion gets D6 melee. Rampage, of course, is the new special rule that lets you get a +N, N equaling the number in those brackets, attacks in whatever version it is, in this case against infantry, heavy infantry, and cavalry. Of course, you've got Slayer for your bigger stuff, and chariots themselves as a unit are not included on either list, so they are immune to both Rampage and Slayer. So, a bit of a stealth buff there too for the chariots. So anyway, moving on to my Ratkin army, no allies. We have 2 regiments of warriors, followed by 2 hordes of shock troops, both of whom have plague pots. Then we have a horde of wretches, 4 troops of claw shots, 2 weapon teams, a broodmother, the Tangle, smoke, mirrors, and death formation. Just real quick on that, there should be a comma after mirrors. We use the Oxford comma in Kings of War. Just remember that, guys. It looks really messy. You should just be using the Oxford comma always. Which involves 2 shredders and a death engine spewer. Now let's take a look at what that formation actually has in it, besides a minor grammatical error. We have the Shredders and the Spewer gaining the redeploy rule, which means that you get to redeploy them after deployment is fully finished, but before scout moves, so that's pretty good. But the lion's share of the point of the formation is on the Spewer itself, which gains Inspiring, Steady Aim, and Aura Iron Resolve tech only. Again, the tech here should be in bold because it's a keyword. So the Inspiring and Steady Aim are the main draws of this. Those are really, really good rules on a Spewer. And then the tech is pretty good. The Aura Iron Resolve is pretty good if you're going to run like maybe a bunch of death engines, right? Like the melee ones especially, because I think those are pretty tasty. Or maybe you're going to swap out to some tunnel runners, right? Like, a lot of people like tunnel runners. You could run 2 regiments of those and one of these just running around with it to give it that Iron Resolve. But in my list, even though I have a ton of tech units, they are all 810 nerve, so they're probably going to get wavered, if not just killed. So the Iron Resolve is pretty much just for the Death Engine itself. But otherwise, the Steady Aim and Inspiring are well worth the 25 points, so it doesn't really matter to me. And then 5 points for the extra on the Shredder to 1 as a tax to take the formation, that's fine. And the redeploy is pretty good. And Shredders, honestly, with that 4th shot, aren't the bad choice they used to be. They used to be terrible. But getting a second shot on them, and of course having that shattering is pretty good. So, moving on to the scenario, we have Control, and after our game last time I uploaded a battle report being Dynamic Control, I'm reminded why I wrote that in the first place. So, at the end of the game, you can divide the board up into 6 2x2 squares and add up the total unit strength of each player's units within a square. The player with the highest unit strength in a square wins it. You can only be in 1 square at a time. And the victory points are going to be awarded as follows. You get 2 victory points if you hold the square in the middle of your opponent's half of the board, and 1 VP if you hold, or for each other square you hold. So that looks something like this. Down here you can see the rats. This is going to be my deployment. So this center is worth 2 to me, while the other 5 are worth 1, and then this center is worth 2 to my opponent, while the other 5 are worth 1 to them. So that's it. Let's go through the terrain real quick. We start off with 3 height 9 forests. Ooh, we've got a great arrow. But we've got 3 height 9 forests. I'm sorry about the kind of scrunched look at this photograph. The place where we are playing right now, the tables are pretty tall. I am not very tall, and there are no chairs, so these are all standing desk games. So it's difficult for me to get a good overhead. But anyway, so we have 3 height 9 forests, followed by a height 3 hill. And then we have well, kind of like 4, but we have 1 L-shaped height 2 obstacle. Then we have 2 height 2 obstacles flanking that house. Then we have 2 height flat pieces of terrain, followed by 2 height 7 houses, and 1 in each deployment zone. So that's going to do it for the terrain itself. I do like this map. If I do say so myself. We were, we're kind of stuck with whatever terrain they have. Of course, like almost every game shop and since the Warhammer itself blew up, the fantasy terrain is lacking. So there's a lot of 40k stuff, not a lot of fantasy. So you kind of have to make do with what you have. But I like this one. It feels like there's enough terrain. We've got terrain stacked on terrain over here, and we have some big open areas so you can actually deploy your armies, but not big open areas so you can just shoot the other army always. So yeah, interesting. And we'll start with the deployment, starting with the Empire of Dust, of course. We open with a Revenant Chariot Regiment. I actually really like my opponent's 3D printed army here. They're by one-page rules, if you're looking for them. They're nice, simple Empire of Dust or Tomb King-esque models. And I would like, the chariots to all be the same model, because you'll see the other regiment in a second is also different models. So I'd really, I think that those should be standardized, but I love these models, so, it's not too confusing, especially this one, I guess you could run these two as reanimated behemoths in a pinch, but they're 3D printed, so you can always just print more, right? And right behind them, we have the 1st Scavengers Regiment, hiding behind that building. And in the middle of the table, we have the 1st Enslaved Guardians Archer Horde, terrible name, followed by the 1st Enslaved Guardians Horde. Right behind them, as you can see, yeah, as I was saying before, these are also a Chariot Regiment, and are very different models. I mean, they're not even ridden, so I'm really into these. I think they look fine as chariots, even with the new Worm Riders, because I don't really value Worm Riders very highly, but I think they look great as chariots. I just want all the models to be the same. And to the right of it, we have the Monolith as Anubis. To the right of that, we have that says Horde, but it should say Legion. So this is a Legion of Revenant Chariots. I love these the Tomb Scorpions that they've got going on, especially because when they existed in the previous edition, boy, were they useless, beyond useless. I remember people trying to argue it forever, and it's just like, no, there's just no reason to ever bring these, besides fun. But on a competitive level, I would love to see them returned and actually be like a real unit. So just don't use the previous template, right? It was bad. Skip that. And to the right of that, we have the Soul Snare, and of course the Revenant Champion on horse with Surge 5. That Surge upgrade, oh, it is so good. Finally, Empire of Dust do not pay the most in the game for their Surge for no reason, which was especially disheartening because, again, Undead have almost the same units as Empire of Dust, and then also have a ton of units that they don't need to Surge, and then also have Surge casters that are just as good as a Cursed High Priest and the Lich King, and also Necromancers, and I was just like, what is this? Why are you a thing? So finally, that Surge 5, big ups. And right in front of them in the blurriest forest, because my camera focused on this tree, we have the 2nd Enslaved Guardians Horde and the 2nd Enslaved Guardians Archers Horde, terrible name, and right behind them is the 2nd Scavengers Regiment. So facing off against the blurry forest, we have both of my Warriors Regiment. So this one's just hiding behind a building, but otherwise they are the same. To the right of that, we have the Death Engine Spewer, of course, with the Inspiring, Steady Aim, and Aura Iron Resolve for tech only. To the right of that, you can see what my thoughts on respecting that tech aura. To the right of that, we have my goblins playing my wretches today because they're little wretched little goblins. And right behind them, we have the 1st Clawshots troop. Right behind that, we have the 1st Shredder, and then we have both of the weapon teams hanging out. To the right of that, we have the 1st Shock Troop, the Tangle. I forgot to mark it, but back here is the Broodmother. And to the right of that, we have, this is sort of the center of the table, we have the 2nd Shredder. And on the right flank, or the left flank as I would see it, we have the 2nd Clawshot, the 2nd Shock Troop Horde with Plague Pots, and of course the 3rd and 4th Troop of Clawshots. So that's a pretty decent deployment. I will say this says turn 1, but let's take a look at the deployment real quick, the finished deployment. So we've got both the hordes of shock troops. My plan here is, I had to eat a bit of terrain on turn 1, but I'm probably not going to run anyway unless I win the roll-off. I'll just have to deal with it. But I'll just advance forward, 6, so I'm not really too worried about losing 1 turn of running. And then I just want these guys to take this hill, right? This is the hill I choose to die on, while the wretches face off against my opponent's Legion of Chariots. And then, I'm just going to start blasting. I have already redeployed both of the Shredders and the Spewer because I originally had them over here just sitting in a corner. It's one of the nice things about the redeploy. I left them space. Basically, I'm threatening my opponent, right, making them think about my firing lanes with the Shredders and the Spewer to respect it, and then when they respect it, I just redeploy them, right? And my opponent is running an entirely, with the exception of, I think it's just the Soul Snare is height 2, but maybe the Scavengers are 2. But everything else is at least height 3, right? So I can see over my own troops and, thus my guns go behind the line, right? I can just shoot you anyway. So that's going to do that. So let's go into real turn 1 with the Empire of Dust. So Empire of Dust turn 1, you can see on the left here, we just advance forward with these chariots being a little tentative. I believe the birds just stayed behind this this little cottage because why not? These chariots have actually been surged forward by the monolith, so they've gone 4 inches, ended up a bit on the hill, not 50%, so I won't get clean shots on them if I choose to shoot at them, but I can still see them because they're height 4. And over here on the right, you can see everything just advances forward as well, with the exception of whatever this is. So those guys probably just haven't moved yet. Those are more Enslaved Guardians. So yeah, the archers advance forward. Apparently they have pot shot, so they can get ready to go. And again, the birds are just hiding out from my guns for a turn, which I think is a pretty prudent piece of behavior. I would like to see this Revenant Champion. My opponent moved it here so that they could double surge. If we go back a picture, this Regiment of Chariots, which I think is kind of a waste of time. Like, why would you double surge them? Right? Like, that's not good. Oh, I remember why these guys stayed back. It's because this is a bit of a traffic jam. So the chariots advanced forward, but they actually ended up just barely in front of these guys, and then they couldn't run past them. So the chariots have to be surged forward to do this. So maybe the Revenant Champion can just surge these guys forward to make up for that mistake later. But anyway, let's take a look at the shooting phase. First off, we have this horde of archers firing into my claw shots. They do 2 wounds to me, so it's 18 shots on 6s. Basically, I'm going, and then they wound me on 3s, right? And I'm like, I mean, even 1 wound is like is an 8 to waver me. But my opponent does 2 wounds, which is fair enough, and then rolls, I think rolls an 8. But I have this 1 horde for rally 1, so I'm just wavered, which is fair. And then over here, these archers fire into my wretches, and I'm like, all right, well, they're defense 2, so your piercing doesn't do anything, and then he just rolls all 1s to wound them anyway. So I'm like, yeah, take it. goblin power. We're still better than rats, even when we are rats. So anyway, that's going to do it for turn 1 for the Empire of Dust. It looks like my opponent didn't go for the Surge here. That's really surprising, right? Like, might as well just Surge 5 these guys so they can catch up. Maybe they didn't see it at the time. But anyway, let's move into Ratkin turn 1. So Ratkin turn 1, as I said before, yeah, we just advance essentially 6 inches forward. These chariots out-threat me so hard, there's no reason not to just go on forward. And then I just stay out of range of the Enslaved Guardians. So that's going to be that. My plan is to fire, well, not this guy because it's wavered, but everything else I want to fire into this regiment of chariots, and then everything after that into the Legion. My opponent only has the Soul Snare for healing, although I do have a defense 2 unit, so that's not great. But the defense, I think they'll be dead soon anyway due to the Legion of Chariots. So my plan is to just get some damage rolling on them, right? Because it's not the standard Empire of Dust. You know, we have piles of heal. I do end up popping the Plague Pot on the center unit. I do not pop it on the red unit because I plan to kill off this regiment and then I can take that. And if I don't kill it, I'm pretty sure I still don't pop on a double regiment charge. So anyway, and over here on the right, yeah, we just move forward. This regiment of warriors moves into the forest. My idea here is I'm really far away from these enslaved guardians, right? And my opponent, again, has limited surge. There's only surge 13 in the list, which isn't bad. Like, surge 13 at 2,000 points is absolutely fine. But I'm trying to get him to go for this surge, right? Because this is going to be a 7-inch surge, which is, you know, that's a good average for 13, but, you know, the mean is not exactly what you get. And if they get it, it's still hindered. They might not even do anything to these warriors. Maybe they'll waver them. But I'm inspired with this, and then I have an easy flank charge into them. So if they get this surge going, I can really punish it. And at the time, I'll just spoil something real quick. I thought the Death Engine Spear had Strider, which it definitely doesn't. So that was the plan, but we'll see how it plays out. I do advance the Spear into the forest because it can shoot out. It's going to hit on 5s turn 1, but I'm used to that because, you know, it used to not have the steady aim option. So I'll take it, and we'll see how that all goes. Let's take a look at the shooting. So first off, I fire the 2 claw shots and the Shredder into this regiment. I do 9 wounds to him, and I get the Shatter going, so that's going to be a 6 to kill. And then over here, I've got the Spewer firing into... I've got the Spewer, one of the other Shredders, and the other claw shots fire into the Legion of Chariots and put 6 wounds onto them. I feel like I probably should have fired at the regiment, but maybe I just didn't have line of sight because a 6 is still a tough roll. But I do manage to kill them off. Yeah, this definitely should have shot up. Yeah, both these things should have shot over there, and maybe they did. And maybe the Spear just rolled nuts. I think, yeah, no, I think that actually did happen. I think I fired all the claw shots and spears, or not spears, Shredder into this regiment to kill it off. The Spear wasn't in range and just fired and got, you know, a really good roll there. But I do manage to kill this off. I will say my opponent was working under the assumption that this, that the monolith was very inspiring and not inspiring. And that's a fair thing to do. I know they just started playing Empire of Dust, and Sepik Ray, which is, you know, another living legend, you know, Empire Dust unit that everyone's like, well, that's an auto-include. You know, which one isn't? I think it's Shobik, by the way. But that one has very inspiring, so it's easy to conflate them. So anyway, I roll the 6 and I kill them. And that's going to be first blood, first bone, first skull for the Ratkin. And that is it for turn 1. So let's move on to turn 2. So turn 2, Empire of Dust goes how you might expect. We're going to get charged by some chariots. So these chariots, it might look like, you know, oh, they're going to end up being hindered because closest route is right there. But the actual closest route in Kings of War is the one with the fewest pivots. So they just advance directly forward and charge into me. I think I can tank that. Although, again, you know, that new Rampage, that's a meaty rule. And I'm defense 4, so pretty good. These birds are the ones that were behind the cottage over here. They fly forward to gum up this horde of rats because, of course, I did pop my plague pot, so no one wants to fight them. Boo. But moving them there really does limit my opportunity to go for flank charges, right? Because I have to be able to fit. And all the units fighting me are not as wide as me, so my units are going to clog me up here. And then you can see over here the Enslaved Guardians just move forward to not touch the hill with their... well, with any point, just to make sure that they are ready to move on top of it and just surge. It's a very, you know, classic shambling unit plan. The archers this time just sit still because they're going to fire at, you know, something. And then the monolith moves forward to actually give inspiring this time. And off here on the right, yeah, the Legion goes into my wretches, so I'm not feeling great about that one. While the Enslaved Guardians here do end up going for, moving up to try to get this 7-inch surge, which I am perfectly okay to take, right? With the Soul Snare moving behind them, it's going to just probably cast into my wretches to try to heal some of the wounds off this unit. And then we have the archers over here just getting ready to take whatever pot shots they can get. So that seems fair. Fair enough. But yeah, let's go into the shooting itself. So I guess I'm just going to show some charges real quick. But once we get into the shooting, yep, both the charges, we start with the monolith because of course the monolith has to go first, right? So it's going to cast off its surge into the Enslaved Guardians. They don't quite make it to the forest. So I think right now, man, not even making to the forest, that's got to be like a 4 or 5 inch surge remaining. So that was a poor roll to begin with. And then over here, we've got the Enslaved Guardians archers, terrible name, taking aim and firing into my warriors, doing 5 damage to them. So again, that's 18 shots on 6s, right? And they land 5 wounds. So they actually hit me 5 times too. So I'm like, wow, that's a really good roll. Although I'm pretty sure I said something more extreme at the time. And over here, we've got the other archers taking aim at my Tangle, again on 6s to hit it, and they do 6 wounds to me, and I'm like, holy shit. So that was 36 shots on 6s. They landed 11 wounds, and I'm like, wow, that's really good. Hopefully the Tangle does not die. It is currently a -16, so I'm not too worried about it. And over here, we've got the Soul Snare. Yeah, this is where things simmer down a little bit. Only managing 3 wounds onto my wretches and healing 3 off of the Legion of Chariots right there. So that's going to do it. Let's go through what happens in the nerve. We've got a 5 here, so I end up getting wavered anyway on those warriors. Sucks to be them. And then over here with the the Chariots versus my shock troops, they managed 7 wounds on me, which is also a very impressive roll because I believe they have 12 attacks, right? So 12 plus D3. So maybe they just rolled high on the D3 and got it out there. But yeah, 7 wounds is pretty good. I wasn't too worried about this because I plan to just drain my wretches, which I assume will be able to tank a chariot charge. And if they can, I can just drain life something else and heal some of this up. But now that my Tangle took 6 wounds, an absurd number, I'm going to have to heal that. So over here, we've got the Wretches, who are an 1821 base, and then currently, I believe that they're at least a 1922, right? And then the Tangle might also be within 6 of them, bumping them to a 23. But they end up getting wavered, which is, that's fine. It'll just mean I have to walk the Tangle over there to give them Aura Fury if I'm out of 6 right now, which I think I am. So I think they were a 1922 there. And here's the end of turn. Oh yeah, that's definitely bigger than 6. So anyway, you can see this unit. My opponent did go for the surge here to try to get that long bomb. Yeah, that looks like probably they needed like a 4. So 4 successes to make it, and I'm not sure I would have done that just because you'll see in a second here the mistake made. But when they go for that long bomb surge, it's really unlikely to work. 5 wounds is already a 7 to waver me on this unit, so they're not going to do a whole lot anyway. And the mistake here is they've clipped the forest, so now I can shoot at them, right? I can see them. So maybe something to think about in the future. But that's going to do it for turn 2 for the Empire of Dust. Let's go to turn 2 for the Rats. So turn 2 Rats, it might look like this was an easy flank, but as I said before, if we go back a picture, even if I back all these units up 3, which is, well, I could get the weapon teams out of here, but this unit backing up 3 inches does not leave enough room for this shock troops horde to charge into the flank and kill the Legion. I don't fit because of these birds, and whether my opponent did it on purpose or it's just a happy accident, I vote for on purpose because they did put it here on purpose, right? This is just barely smaller than 80 millimeters, so I can't just like slide down that way either. So anyway, we're gonna have to charge those birds. So we take the counter charge here into the chariots. We take the wretches back into the Legion of Chariots. My plan is just to drain them as well, so I'm going to do Drain Life 10 to heal up the Tangle, which you can already see went through. So I managed to put 4 wounds onto the horde of Wretches. I healed 4 wounds off the Tangle, and then of course I have the Aura Radiance of Life. So I've healed 1 here, down to 6, down to 1. This says 19, but it should be down to 18, and I fix it later. And over here you can see I do take the flank charge with the Spewer. Again, I was thinking that the Spewer had Strider, and I did play it that way, but I do remember my opponent, I only remember that so clearly because my opponent very specifically asked me, and I'm like, yes, it has Strider. I'm very, very certain of that. And when I rolled the dice for the attack here in the flank, I only rolled 2 4s, so it does not actually make a difference for what happened in this game, or at least not a big difference. But in the end, I did make a mistake there. But so anyway, I don't know why I thought a Chariot would have Strider. Insane. And then I back up with these guys a little bit. My plan here is just to fire. I've got 2 weapon teams ready to rock because this unit has touched the forest. I'm going to shoot at them, and then, I've got the claw shots. I've got a shredder as well that can fire at them. So the plan is just to delete that unit as quickly as I can. I get them up to double 1s here, which you'll see, and then I fire off all of the claw shots here into these archers. This kind of sucked because, let's see, can I go back? Okay, so they definitely have cover. All right, so that's fine. So yeah, this does not suck. This is absolutely fine. I manage 5 wounds, and I get the shatter up, meaning the shredder hit. So it's going to be an 11 to kill him. Very unlikely, but I did prime them for later, right? And then over here, I fire both the weapon teams, the claw shots, and the shredder into this unit of enslaved guardians, and I get the shatter up as well. So that's going to be not double 1s to kill them. So that's absolutely great. And in the I will say I think I forgot to grab a picture of it. I do manage to kill this unit. I do not roll an 11 on the enslaved guardians archers, terrible name, off there on the left. And in combat, I managed to get this unit up to 12 wounds. I bet that came from the wretches. No, mostly came from the Spewer, who keeps rolling a 6 for its bonus dice. So that was 26 attacks in the flank. Should have been on 5s, but again, I only rolled two 4s. So not that big of a difference. So it survives, it stares at me, and then after I kill off the birds here, what I do is go to the right, because now I've railroaded this unit. When I went to the right, I made it so this, I'm almost exactly on the center here. So I am wider than the chariot base, of course, and then when I went here, there's now no way to pick up in place and countercharge this chariot, right? I believe you do not nudge, so the only thing that this legion can do is choo-choo into my wretches at 18 wounds, which I'll take. So that's going to be the end of turn 2 in full. I also managed to kill off this regiment of chariots, and I just sat here, I guess. I probably should have gone forward, maybe? No, I have a lot of wounds. I have 11 wounds on me right now. No, I have, that's not right. I have 6 wounds on me right now. So yeah, I probably should have gone forward and maybe popped the plague pots, right? So if these guys went here, I'd have ensnare, and if these guys chose to shoot at me, I'd have stealthy. But I did not, so I just sat there. Maybe I just forgot about them. But I did this correctly, so that's going to do that. And let's move on to turn 3. So turn 3 for the Empire of Dust. Again, these are the birds that were over behind the forest on the right. They fly forward to protect the flank of the enslaved guardians from my shock troop horde, which my opponent has put out their little measuring stick, and yeah, just leaving them there left them in the flank. So, I don't have to plan if I planned 2 turns ago. The shock troops here absorb the charge. They have no damage on them, so I'm not really afraid. And in the middle, we have, yeah, these guys can just go into my very wounded wretches. I'm okay with that. And the archers here take a flank charge onto my spewer, but they are hindered. So that's going to be 36 attacks on 5s. So that's like 12 hits, like, 8 or 9 wounds, probably like 10 then. And I'm not too worried about it because I am within 6 of at least 1 of the rally, and I inspire myself. So I'm a dash 17. So I'm not super worried, although I am a little bit. And that's going to do it for my opponent's charging. Let's go into the shooting. We start off with the Soul Snare going into my unwounded unit of shock troops, doing 3 damage to them, so just staying consistent. I believe healing the Legion of Chariots again. And then these archers fire into my wounded unit of shock troops, nailing them for 5, just really proving that bit where Enslaved Guardians archers, for the terrible name that they have, man, are they good. So, yep, get me up to 11 damage there. And over here, yeah, my wretches in combat end up at 28 damage and explode, of course. They do not have Last Breath, which is also a pretty underwhelming rule, but they did go out with a bang. So they die. Over here with the Spear, I end up taking 9 wounds, so well within that average, and I do not die. And then the Iron Resolve triggers, so I go down to 8. And here is the end of turn shot. So yeah, they don't manage to, the Enslaved Guardians here do not manage to kill off my shock troops. Probably looks like a dead horde of Enslaved Guardians, because of course I have 30 attacks there on 4s, and I have a pretty easy Bane Chant and a Drain Life if I want it. So I can get some pretty big damage going. So we're going to have to see about that, and then, you know, everything else. So let's see what happens with Ratkin turn 3. So Ratkin turn 3, we have all of our shooting on the left here. Yeah, we're just going to fire into the Enslaved Guardians archers, terrible name. Get ready for that. And then I have these guys pop their Plague Pots finally. They're at 11 wounds. They're going to go into these birds, try to kill them. Of course, I take the countercharge here. And over here, yeah, this is not where the Spear is. It just doesn't work on its base right now. So I take these warriors on a hindered charge, so 12 attacks on 6s, because woo! Into the archers, because I need to make sure that I do at least 1 wound, so they don't double tap me. And then, of course, the Spear goes in there as well. This is a counter charge, so my inability to read the word Strider does not matter. So yep, and then I'm going to shoot everything I can into this Legion of Chariots, who decided to overrun a little bit to dodge the flank charge from this, but I could have still flanked them. Because I could have withdrawn and then hit them and picked up in place and gone here. But I thought it prudent to just shoot these guys to death. They're at 8 wounds. I've got plenty of shooting. And then just charge into the Enslaved Guardians. So that's going to be the plan. And over here, yeah, so we start with our shooting. We roll terribly, because that's 15 shots from the claw shots unobstructed, and 4 shredder shots, so the shredder obviously missed, and then the claw shots only managed 2 wounds, so not a good roll there. And over here, we do clean up the Legion of Chariots at least. I did have to use everything though to get them to double ones, including my Drain Life, because this shredder could not fire there. So I'm not sure where this shredder. Maybe this shredder didn't have a target because it couldn't fire at the Legion. But anyway, it just sits there and does nothing then. But I do manage to kill off that Legion. I do manage also to get the Bane Chant on this unit, so that's going to be 30 attacks on 4s, so that's going to be like 15 hits, and then like 10 wounds. It's a 7 to kill him. Not the tallest order, but it is inspired, so that's like a 25% chance. So a little bit worse than I was thinking originally. And yeah, just showing off the Legion died. Over here in this combat, I manage, I think, 6 wounds, it looks like. And again, that is just the Spear, because it rolled another 6, so it's got 13 attacks again. But it has 8 wounds on it, so it goes in there, 4s to hit, and then 3s to wound, because it's crushing 1. Manages a few wounds. These guys do not do anything. My horde of shock troops does manage to kill off the birds, and then when I reform to be greater than 1 inch away from my shock troops here. So when these guys withdraw, they cannot see me. And then if they try to turn, right, like the old turn and just surge, well, you can't do that anymore, because when you withdraw, you have to end an inch away, right? So that doesn't work. So I've protected this from a cheeky little flank charge using surge. And then I did not measure this, but I should have before, because we're going to take a look at the end shot. Yeah, I did not manage to kill these guys off. I also didn't. Did I do 10? So it looks like I did the exact average. I didn't, roll the 7 twice though, so that's fair. But the Tangle, I could have moved a little bit farther forward. I did not, but I ended up exactly 6 inches from this back corner. So I am inspiring, and rallying for that matter, which is, probably going to be really important because I'm about to get charged. So maybe even double tapped, right? Like they might just move forward, fire their pot shots, and then go for the 1 inch surge because they have 2. So that's going to do that. Let's move on to turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. So turn 4, Empire of Dust, this game is getting pretty juicy. We've got the Enslaved Guardians Archers, terrible name, going into my Spear, looking to pick it up. We have the Enslaved Guardians Normal going into my horde of shock troops. I'm not too worried about it because, again, I'm only at 6 wounds, right? They've got 18 attacks. Who cares? And then these guys are at 11 wounds, which is more worrisome, but I have Stealthy and Ensnare, and my opponent did not go for the pot shot play, so limiting their dice. So that's going to be 18 attacks on 5s and then 3s, right? And I am currently a 22-24, and even if I'm wavered, I can just move the Fury Aura forward, so I'm not really worried about it. Yeah, so that's going to do it. Same thing with this, is at 22-24, so, you know, we're not even at boxcars yet. This is... This one's I'm a little worried about. But again, it's a 4+ to hit unit. So let's see what happens in the shooting phase. All we have, we'll go back. So the only thing that happens here is this Soul Snare goes, it manages 3 wounds again. It does, you know, the thing you might expect. But these guys wound me 13 times. So 18 attacks, they just roll out the box. My opponent has actually been rolling very, very well this game for hits and wounds and nerve, very importantly. So yeah, they just pick up that horde of shock troops. I'm like, well, that's bad. And then over here, yep, they just picked that up too. So 18 attacks on 5s and 3s. Yep, they do a pretty absurd amount of damage. It was not like 13. It's not that high, but it wasn't double digits. But it was like 8 or 9 damage. And I'm like, wow, okay, so they're gone too. So I lose both my shock troops, just lickety split to some crazy dice, and then I lose the spewer, not to crazy dice, just what you might expect. You might think that this Revenant champion did charge into this weapon team. You might be thinking, oh, you know, there's a big flub there. Yeah, we just haven't rolled it yet, so he picks up this weapon team as well. But that said, we'll move on to Ratkin turn 4 from a... we were in a very dominating position, but now I think we're actually playing from behind. So we'll see what we can do. So Ratkin turn 4, all I can really do is straighten the tangle, accept this charge, and just shoot everything, right? Like, you know, good little Ratkin. So my plan here is this weapon team, the remaining one, just walks right through the champion because it is, of course, yielding. I end an inch away, so I can shoot at this horde of enslaved guardians. I do a little nimbly bimbly charge into the flank of the archers with my broodmother, because I don't need the healing right now as everything died. So I'm just going to go for the disorder and maybe even the lucky kill. And then, of course, I take the tangle. Yeah, I straighten the tangle, and then it's ready to fire its fireball. It can fire at either of the wounded targets, although the monolith took some damage at some point as well. Although, obviously, I'm not going to just shoot at a big rock until these much more dangerous units are dealt with. So that's that. Let's see what happens in the shooting. So we have, and then over here, yeah, I did take these warriors back in. Why not? They can get charged by the archers either way. I probably, in hindsight now, should not have taken this unit in. I should have just left or backed it up maybe a little bit, because yeah, this allows a countercharge here, and I think I'd rather my broodmother eat the countercharge, as she is a 12-14 inspiring and def 5, while these are wounded, you know, warriors at def 4. So backing them up makes it so it's a hindered charge, but yeah, I don't know. I think that would have been better, and it would have opened up a flank if they had gone here and failed. So yeah, this is probably a mistake, but this is not, which is I see the warriors are about to die, and then I advance 3 forward, I pivot, and then I advance 3 forward with these rats, because we're going to go for this this table 6 over here, just real quick. So that's going to do it. Let's see how it all goes. First off, yeah, I do manage to pick up that horde of enslaved guardians using the fireball, which now has shattering. The fireball and one of the units of claw shots, one of the shredders, and my weapon team. With all that combined, I picked them up. They were pretty wounded, though. I think they were at 7 wounds after the heal from the soul snare. So pick them up. And then over here, 3 claw shots and a shredder. Again, no cover. Fire into these guys and do 2 wounds. And I'm like, ah, yes. Fucking kill me. So these archers are not just rolling insane, but also protected by set themselves from any arrows. So that's pretty fun. And we'll go to over here. I get these ones up to 12 wounds, which is actually much higher than I thought I was going to get to. I can't roll the 5 to kill him. I actually rolled a 3 for all my nerve checks this turn. I rolled back-to-back 3s on the enslaved guardians that I killed because they were at double 1s. I rolled a 3 for the left guardian archers, and then I rolled a 3 for these archers as well. So, stay consistent. At least it's not double 1s though, right? So that's going to do it for the turn. Things are pretty exciting right now, right? Like, these archers can charge into my tangle. They could even do the same thing where they advance 6 forward. They can't actually get into the flank. I might have bumped this base, but I did measure it before or we measured it. Whatever. We made sure that if they advance their full 6, they cannot actually get into my flank here. So these archers can charge into the front of the tangle. They could move forward and do a pot shot, and then go for a surge charge. They'll probably just regular charge though, right? Or they can just shoot, right? Because we've got stuff like these claw shots, 810 nerve with no reroll, ready to die. And then we have the Revenant Champion over here. So let's see what happens in turn 5. So turn 5, first off, we're gonna not do an establishing shot because it's too exciting. So we have the Soul Snare getting ready to fire at me, fires into my Tangle, does 5 wounds to it, and I'm like, oh no, the Soul Snare figured out whatever steroids the rest of the army is on. Yeah, just hit me up. It's probably milk, right? Because they're all bones. So they do 5 wounds to me, which is not good, but thankfully my opponent decided to not charge me, so we'll be just rolling on that. These guys take aim. I feel like they should just shoot the Tangle now, right? It's already at 5 wounds. It's essentially a -9, right? If you do, a point of damage. But they decide to fire at one of my units of claw shots and double one it. So yeah, 5 wounds to me. That is an actual double one necessary to not get the waiver. So I'll take it, right? Double one, first double one of the game, first double one of the new Clash pack. And over here, yeah, these guys pick up my warriors. The exact thing I said I probably shouldn't do, and kill them. And then, of course, they're down to 6 wounds now because the Soul Snare hit for 5, and then they have Life Leech 1. So, yep, my my little Ratto, my broodmother, has her work laid out for her. So, anyway, this is the end of turn 5 for the Empire of Dust. As you can see, things are getting pretty interesting. Excuse me. Pretty interesting. We have the Revenant Champion here actually failing its charge. It went into the to the rear, not that it matters, of my weapon team, only managing 4 damage, and then not wavering me, which I guess might be big, but it at least disorders I can't shoot, so that's going to do it for that. And we will move into turn 5 for the rats. So turn 5 rats. First off, we've got all the shooting again. Please kill these archers. We do. So it took us several turns, probably 2 more turns than the average to kill them, but we did get them in the end, so that's good. And here is the final look at it. So I had these rats just run on forward. They are now in this table 6th. And then we've got these guys, plus, of course, the Drain Life to try to kill off the Enslaved Guardians archers, terrible name, which we do, thankfully get them. And then the Tangle just takes a fun charge into the Wounded Monolith, because why not? Does have 9 attacks, so meh. But does not manage to hit any of those, so no wounds. And that's going to do it for the game. Here is the final shot. So if we divide the table up, it's something like this. I think. No, it's like this. Yeah. It's like this. So in the end, my opponent only has 1 unit that can score, which is the Monolith, but it's contested by both the Tangle and the Broodmother. So I'm going to actually have my opponent's center for 2 points. I'm going to have this for 1, so that's going to put us at 3. Then we have 4 and 5. So it's going to be 5-0 for the Ratkin. And yeah, a pretty telling victory, but we'll go over that in conclusions and list discussion. So for the conclusions, again, control is kind of a meh. I mean, it's not a mess scenario. I actually really like control. I just don't like the score at the end of the game because it makes it a little too easy for armies such as mine to just sit back and shoot at you, and then at the end of it, then I can move into these sectors and take them over, right? So it would be better if it scored dynamically, in my opinion. But otherwise, a really fun game. Really tight, some crazy dice, right? But really made it interesting from a game that looked like it was kind of over on turn 3 into like a real nail biter, especially because I think my opponent has a pretty bad matchup on control against mine. Like, I have so many scoring units, so many tiny things that I can just throw in the way. So yeah, really cool stuff. I will say this about 1995 plus 5. Well, 2 things. One, I think this my Ratkin list especially kind of shows off that, when people say lowering the points down to 1995 or 2000 even, lower skew, that's not really true, though. it's not, because all it really does is lower the duplicate rule, right? So, you know, I can only bring 2 weapon teams, but I can still bring 2 shredders. Or if you're playing dwarves and you're going like, oh, they can bring 3 cannons, or oh, goblins can bring 3 rocks. Well, now they can bring 2 rocks and a bolt thrower, right? So you've made one of their choices a little bit worse, but not by a lot. So it doesn't really do that much, and if anything, it makes it so the skew actually takes a larger percentage of your list. So in this case, you know, a claw shot is 95 points, and in 2,300 points, that's going to take up fewer, or that's going to be a lower percentage of the list in total compared to a 2,000 list, right? So a greater percentage of my list is now shooting, a greater percentage of that, and I am incentivized to go greater into that shooting because you've increased the tempo value of the game, right? Because you don't have as many units that can actually, you know, push into me and stop me, which my opponent, as you can see, suffered from a little bit. I will say I probably, since the scavengers were run as just charge blockers a little bit, I think I might have run them aggressively against the claw shots and just been like, well, you know, like run the chariots towards the claw shots with the birds behind them. Then the chariots charge, right? Then the scavengers can maybe get a charge off on the claw shots and just shred them. But that's about it. So anyway, and the second thing about 1995 plus 5 is it really showcases that the 2,000 point thing is not really a balance factor. It's just the number that people hold sacred. People really like the number 2K. They like it. It feels clean. They've been doing it for, you know, their entire lives if they've been playing Warhammer and yada yada. So like this really shows it up, because what does the plus 5 do? Why even do that? Why not just make the tournament 1995? Why have plus 5? The answer is just that 2,000 is a sacred number. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on the subject. Talking about the lists themselves, we have the Empire of Dust. I really like this list if you're going to play Empire of Dust. The first thing I tell anyone when they ask me what should they, oh, I want to play Empire Dust at 2,000, right? Because I write a lot of 2,300 point lists. And they'll be like, how do I make your list into a 2,000 point list? And my answer is always play Undead. They're just better at this, right? Like, and I don't mean in general, right? I don't mean always. I'm just saying Empire of Dust rely heavily on value, meaning that the higher the points go, the better Empire of Dust is. While Undead don't. Undead can run, they have any number of units. They can bring a Cursed High Priest and the Lich King if they want, or they can bring a Necromancer, which is 60 points, right? Like, you can just do that. So if you're going to play Empire of Dust, I think that this is about how I would do it, which is just as high tempo as you can get. It is unfortunate that that Enslaved Guardians are like the point of the army, because this stat block is what you aim to kill. It's Def 5, 15, 17 ogres. If you can kill those, you have a real hammer on your hand. That's, you know, just standard Kings of War math. The dash 17 doesn't really change it too much. So, you know, you're just running unit after unit of it. But those units are some of the best in the game at it. Enslaved Guardians are an excellent unit. Enslaved Guardians Archers, for their terrible name, again, are an excellent unit of it. And then the Monolith is pretty good, right? Soul Snare is excellent, right? And the new Bone Shakers, I think, is very interesting. I love Revenant Champions on horses. I liked them before. I run them very consistently with the Crystal Pendant. But now that they have the Surge upgrade, I feel they're quite ubiquitous, right? Like, Cursed High Priests are still overpriced. There's not a lot of reason to run them. That's just the truth of it. But having that Surge 5 for 10 points on a Revenant Champion makes it just significantly better, right? That's a 75 point hero that can fight, cast, and has Inspire. Excellent stuff. Scavengers, I think, are really good. I might even go as far to say, like, you could just skip the formation. It's only giving you, the rampage, right? You could skip the formation and one of these regiments of chariots maybe, or knock the legion down to a horde, right? And use those points to buy more scavengers, right? So that's what I would do, maybe, right? That's a choice, right? I do like that this is not running Sepic Ray in it. I don't think you ever run Shobik in a 2,000 point list, personally, but I don't run Shobik really all that much anyway, because I think Shobik is really good, obviously, but not an auto-include. Not in an army that is this tight on points. But yeah, I think the Monolith is a perfect pick because it can sit back and inspire your archers while also projecting It's Surge towards the units that really want to be Surge, the Chariots and the Enslaved Guardians, the melee ones. So yeah, I think that this is a pretty tuned list. So anyway, moving on to the Ratkin. This is a fun army. I like playing Ratkin. I think that they are a blast. I think their formation is really fun. I like the Spewer. You know, if you've been watching my battle reports recently, you've seen I run the Spewer a lot, or one of them. So I really like that. The Shredder is, or was, pretty bad at 3 shots. I've run it in at least one game, and I've run it a few times otherwise, shadowboxing, and it's never been impressive. But at 4 shots and a redeploy to give the Shredder an additional ability, yeah, I could see it. Especially because I'm not running goblins in this, so I don't have the bang it to just slap Shattering out. You know, I need to get it somewhere besides just the Tangle's Fireball. So I do think that this list works. It does the things I want it to do. At 2K, this is pretty close to the Ratkin I would run. At 2300, I have been messing around with it as well. I took the allies out just because I want to run the formation, and that's how I make up my points. But otherwise, yep, I think this is pretty close to what I'd run for Ratkin just in general, although whether you should run Ratkin, who knows. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the report, and until next time, bye.